You're listening to A Radio.
Landing ground.
Thank you for joining us. You are listening to A Radio, and this is the Morning Moment. We're on weekdays, 11:45 Eastern. Follow us on Spreaker.com and click on the like button. So I was talking to someone yesterday on social media who I follow, and they follow me. The gist of the conversation, or the part that matters here, was that I feel my best comments are made when I'm either aggravated or angry. Well, if you can't guess, this is no exception. This piece comes from Reuters. I think you would agree Reuters generally is a fairly reliable source. It's basically a follow-up from the continuing non-covering of the damage to the financial infrastructure of Western society being perpetrated by Bloomberg and his supporters. Yet again, Bloomberg organisation refuses to cover this. And not only is it Bloomberg, it's other presidential candidates such as Tom Steyer, all supporting fake climate change hoax. Yet Bloomberg, the organisation, doesn't cover it because it is part of Mr. Bloomberg, who thinks he can spend his way to the presidency. Just an aside, have you ever stopped and noticed it's always either the rich, super rich, or well-connected who want to stop you from leading your life the way that you choose? Funny that, isn't it? Doesn't matter which country you're in. I'll give you another example which has nothing to do with politics. It's this Meghan Markle debacle. Why is it that the rich, the super rich, or the well-connected can live anywhere and go anywhere, yet the likes of you and me get stopped at border patrol and border control and asked stupid questions about whether you're carrying guns and what's the purpose of your visit to the United States or to Canada? Yet Meghan Markle, who's an American, not a Canadian, can just waltz into Canada as though she owns the place, whereas there are many Brits who'd like to come here who can't. It just seems a little bit one-sided to me. Anyway, that's just an aside. And a further thought. They've got their wealth and they've got their position of power, so they think there's no need to worry about you. Well, you know what? Where I come from, there's an expression we use, but this is a modern-day version of it. I'm all right, Jack, and here's the new part, but screw you, basically. Another example is the founder of Microsoft, who spouts all these new taxes as being a good thing, but when it's explained to him that he will lose half his wealth with a stroke of a pen, suddenly he sees the light. He's converted, and then he doesn't think these taxes are really such a great idea. The same applies to Bloomberg and Co. When they realise the damage it will do to them, I am convinced they will have second thoughts. However, if these people they support currently, who are nothing more than climate change nutballs, manage to succeed, the process of our economy, doesn't matter which country you're in, the damage they will do will be not able to be reversed. It will be non-reversible. Let me say that again. If these climate nutballs succeed, there will be nothing to return to. Our society as a whole will, for all intents and purposes, retract back probably the best part of 100 years or more in evolution, but still with modern technology in hand. The result will undoubtedly be destabilization of our society, leading to civil unrest and far, far worse. Just a thought. Here's part of that piece from Reuters. The links will be on my site as soon as I can get to them. It's entitled Blackrock vows tougher stance on climate after activist heat. Chief Executive Larry Fink, warned company boards to step up efforts to tackle climate change, a significant shift by the world's top asset manager, as it faces mounting concerns over its fossil fuel investments. In his annual letter to CEOs, posted on the company's website on Tuesday, Fink forecast a fundamental reshaping of finance and said companies must act or face the anger from investors over how unsustainable business practices might curb their future wealth. Fink also said Blackrock would be increasingly disposed to cast critical proxy votes tied to sustainability, and said in a separate letter to clients that the firm will be, by the mid-2020s, selling off from its actively managed client portfolios in companies that derive more than 25% of their revenues from thermal coal production. Climate activists hailed Fink's revamped stance and said they would put pressure on rivals, though some cautioned the New York-based asset manager must still back up its new rhetoric. As the biggest financial institution in the world, BlackRock's announcement today is a major step in the right direction and a testament to the power of public pressure calling for climate action, said Ben Cushing of the US-based environmental group Sierra Club in an emailed statement. A shift in global investing trends has sent trillions of dollars into passive funds run by BlackRock and rivals Vanguard Group and State Street Corp, bringing all three powerful new leverage on top corporations. A Vanguard spokeswoman said the firm aims to address climate change while adhering to our obligations to deliver long-term value to our fund holders. State Street did not immediately respond to requests for comment. All three companies count clients with worldwide range of political views and tried to represent their actions in terms of investment strategy rather than politics. Montana Senate Majority Leader Fred Thomas, a Republican and legislative liaison with Montana Board of Investments, for which BlackRock manages assets, said he supports the use of many fuel sources, including coal, and that BlackRock should be very wary of calls to move away from fossil fuels. Quote, "Any effort, in my opinion, to try to placate this environmental agenda just to get along and go along is a bad decision for any business," Thomas said. Subheading Out from Behind the Scenes. A Reuters analysis in October found top index fund managers rarely challenge company management and have largely opposed climate change proposals. In 2018 and 2019, BlackRock and Vanguard only backed around 10% of climate-related shareholder resolutions. Historically, BlackRock has said it lobbies corporate executives behind the scenes, an approach that critics said undercuts other reform efforts. At ExxonMobil's annual meeting on May 29, for instance, BlackRock backed all but one of the 10 directors up for election and opposed all but one of 7 shareholders' proposals, disclosures show. Fink on Tuesday said BlackRock would disclose its proxy votes quarterly and give more explanation about high-profile decisions. In an interview, Robert Jackson, a member of the US Securities and Exchange Commission, said he was thrilled with the step as a way to create more accountability for the votes. Now that piece continues, and you're welcome to read it, or you can look it up before I post the actual link. But here's my concern. I think they're making a big mistake. You know why? Because they're looking at the world as though America controls financial institutions. Yes, they do in the Western world. But there's another big financial institution in the world that they're totally and utterly ignoring. There's only one person who's not, and that's Donald Trump. Donald Trump knows that China is a big financial institution now, mainly created by Western indifference over the last 30 years. But nevertheless, if these people go down this crazy nutball climate change hoax attitude and only invest our money, it's our money at the end of the day, it's not theirs, in these nutball ideas, then China will step in and invest in these companies, and we will lose out. The Blackrock of today could be the BlackBerry of tomorrow, and so could all these other financial institutions. By following these climate crazy left-wing communist ideas, could they be in fact destroying Western democracy and the Western financial institutions? Not to mention the industrial combines of the West. Could this be a way of destroying the West from within? Death by 1,000 cuts? But the 1,000 cuts don't come from our enemies, they come from ourselves. These people are utterly and completely dangerous. To consider disenfranchising financially companies that keep us safe and sustainable is crazy and dangerous. Donald Trump knows this. Now, in Canada, we have a communist in charge here, Herr Trudeau, and he is hell-bent on destroying Canada in terms of fossil fuels, which means he's going to destroy one part of Canada, namely Alberta. Yet here, the mainstream media is crickets. They don't want to discuss it. And if you want to see what America's going to be like in 10 years, come to Canada now and you'll see the decimation that's being raged on Alberta. The highest unemployment in Canada, over 8%, houses being repossessed on a daily, weekly and monthly basis, whole areas decimated, all for their ideology. But really it isn't about their ideology in terms of climate change with Trudeau, it's about political control. If he can decimate Alberta and pump in immigrants who vote his way, he will stay in office for 30 years. And that's really what it's about in Canada. He will go as far as he needs to go to control this country, because he's not a democratic person. And the Liberals in Canada are not Democrats in the democratic sense. All this is linked. Bloomberg is interfering, as I said in a previous podcast, in Canada, along with other notable people in the United States. And what they're doing here is a model for what they plan to do to the United States. Make no mistake about this. Learn from Canada now. Do not make the mistake that Canada has made. Canada is controlled by a very, very small part of the country, which is breeding civil unrest, and the same will happen to you. It's already happening to you. I give you California, where the country is looking to California and wondering, is that going to come here? And it's already creeping here. If you want to see how far it's creeping, go to Oregon, and of course creep up the coast a bit more to Washington State, and then guess where you end up? Canada. It's all linked. These people are creeping across the country, just as they're doing in Canada. They're destroying British Columbia, they're destroying Alberta, they're working their way across our country in Canada to turn it into a socialist state. This is the beginning of it. This is, I'm sorry to tell you again, folks, this is Agenda 2030 in action. These people, these Blackrock and these other organisations, have too much control over what we can and cannot do. Maybe you should look at your investments and see whether you are linked to Blackrock in any way. Maybe you should disinvest from Blackrock and others. Maybe you should invest in fund managers who support your economy, not try and destroy your economy. That applies in any country. Who are these people? Who elected these people? You can find more at aradio.wordpress.com, where you can find links to us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Gab, Spotify and email. We're on Spotify under the podcast section. Type in Canadian Politics with a Twist and you'll find us. We are continuing to reach out to you, so please pass these links on to your friends. Please click on the follow button on Spreaker.com. You can listen to all our morning moments at Spreaker.com/A-Radio. EHRADIO, A-Radio. And please click on the like button. Join us Monday, Wednesday and Friday at 11:45 Eastern and tell your friends and pass the word. We only tell the truth, not what the mainstream media want you to know.